So Liz and I were doing a training run on the Petit Train du Nord track. This is just north of Montreal. It's not much of a trail. It's more like a bike path through the Laurentian forests in Quebec. And it's quite beautiful. So we're doing our training run together, and we come up behind a guy who's running on his own. And he says to us, look, just up ahead, a deer. Actually, he said all this in French, but just translating for the understandability of it. So we see this huge female deer crossing the trail about 20 meters ahead of us. Fantastic. And then he's all excited. And he runs up to check it out. And he runs ahead of us to check it out. As he does so, two little baby deers, two little Bambis, emerge on the trail behind him. He doesn't see them, but we do. We go, oh, wow, look at that. And then they start looking for their mum. So they start running up the trail behind this guy. So this guy's running up the trail to see the big deer, and there's two little Bambis running up behind him. And then they suddenly get all nervous. They look at each other and realize that they're out in public, and they jump off into the bushes to go and find their mummy, I guess. And then the guy turns around, and so he turns back to see us, but the deers have disappeared by then. The little Bambis have disappeared. So he never saw them, and we had to explain to them what happened. Hey, you had two little baby deer following you for about 10 meters along the trail. These are the kind of experiences you can sometimes have if you get into trail running and get off the road. I'm going to hear more about trail running soon. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new with your running. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today with author Claire Maxted, somebody you might know as the Wild Ginger Runner, about her book, The Ultimate Trail Running Handbook.
The Ultimate Trail Running Handbook is not called Ultimate for no reason. It goes through many topics in a beginner-friendly way with lots of lists and pictures. Almost every trail running question is touched on during the 7 chapters, and there are also training plans, strength training exercises, and stretches for post-run. The chapter titles are Quick Start, Skills and Techniques, Training and Plans, Beat Injury, Trail Gear, Nutrition and Hydration, Races and Challenges, and a bonus at the end of the book is actually a whole entire list of books that you can read if you need more material. Actually, that we found that was like a great touch. And we went through the list and I realized that I had only read one book out of the whole list, and it's probably the book that everybody else has read, which is Born to Run. So we've got a lot of reading to do just with that list. A little bit about Claire. So Claire Maxted is co-founder and former editor of Trail Running magazine. She now runs the YouTube channel Wild Ginger Running, creating films packed with trail and ultra running advice, athlete interviews, gear reviews, and race recce's. What is a recce?
Reconnoiters.
Well, is that like basically race recaps? Can I just say that?
It's like
Not
when you
really.
go and run the race route before the race, so you know where it goes.
Oh, okay.
We call it a recce in the UK. It's like a military term, like reconnaissance.
Comes from the forces, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Alan knew exactly what that was.
You should ask me.
Yeah, I should.
I know
And
this
I was
stuff.
like, how come? Like, I've never seen that word before. So her website, which she also has, goes by the same name. It's www.wildgingerrunning.co.uk. And you can find all of the things that she's doing on her website. So with pleasure, welcome to the podcast, Claire.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. And it's so lovely that you have a podcast dedicated to books. I mean, there's so many running books nowadays. You must have your work cut out reading all of them.
Oh, we do, actually. You know what? When we started this podcast, I don't know if the listeners know this, but we talk about this all the time, like just the two of us, but we actually thought we would run out of material.
There are so many books. I get 7 press releases for a new book every single week. And I have a massive confession to make here on this. I don't know if I should tell you on this running book podcast, but I don't actually read running books. I'm so fed up of running in my day job. Well, I'm not fed up of running, but I do so much running stuff in my day job that the last thing that I want to do when I stop working is read a running book. So I don't that's like a secret, isn't it? I don't know if we should actually tell anyone that, but yeah, I like writing books.
Yeah.
I like reading running books. If I was going to read a book, it'd be a science fiction book. So science fiction about running, yes.
That's interesting, because that's my other book subject, science fiction.
Yeah, and poor Alan, like I keep him on a schedule, so he like doesn't have time to read any of his science fiction things.
Love it.
So yeah, we really like books. So speaking of books, this book, The Ultimate Trail Running Handbook, what made you decide to write this one?
Well, I just felt like there was a bit of a gap in the UK market for a trail running book, and there was another book that the same publisher had previously published, but it sort of was a bit of a mix of trail and ultra running. And it sort of started, the intro chapter started with like the death of Caballo Blanco, the guy in Born to Run that was running with the Tarahumara Indians, and it just like started on a bit of a downer, and then it was just kind of quite up here, like quite high up in the level that it was aiming at, and I just wanted to bring it right back down. I wanted this book to bridge the gap between like road running and what we call over here, which is fell running, which is like running in the mountains, like not necessarily even on a path here in the UK. It's like quickest way up, quickest way down. We don't do all this switchback malarkey that I know that you guys have in America. North America and Canada, I mean. So I just wanted to write a really nice friendly beginner book about trail running and make it quite accessible to people, and make it not this big scary thing that you had to get loads of gear to do. But after having written the gear section, it seems you do need quite a lot of gear for it eventually. But just so somebody could put on a pair of trainers, clip in a sports bra and get on their merry way. And I think that a lot of people are actually trail runners, but they don't really realize it. Like if you do your park run, well, this is in the UK, I know there's maybe some in Canada and some in the US. If you do a park run and it's off-road, then you are a trail runner already. And I think people don't realize that, and it's just a skill to build on really, rather than some big new scary thing. So I just wanted to make it accessible. And also with editing Trail Running magazine, I edited it for about 7 years, so I felt like I had this like wealth of sort of knowledge from all these coaches and all these experts. But who keeps a magazine? Like there's not many people who will keep the magazines all on their shelves anymore.
That's true.
Something that would stay for ages, and I just wanted to put all the information in one place so people could just find it, and that was the idea behind the book.
Well, I think you've certainly done that in terms of making it accessible. We'll probably cover that in our summary towards the end, but you've definitely made it, a pick-upable item and a browse-throughable item. One of the things you get right into early in the book is how enthusiastic you are about trails. It kind of jumps out at you. The first few pages, your passion, your sort of emotional, your love for trail running. And in our club, we're always having arguments about whether we're going to run on the trails or on the roads, because we have access to sort of both from where we start from. It's clear that it's a no contest as far as you're concerned, that the trails are best. And about 50% of our club who are listening to this now are going, yeah, go Claire, go Claire. Nearly 50% are going, oh no, another one piling in on trails. So why is it that you're so enthusiastic about trail running? What is it about trails?
Because I'm not very fast at running. So if I'm on a road and it's just, the same surface, step after step, I'm not like the fastest runner, and I kind of get a little bit bored as well. So I'm not like in it for the speed. I'm in it for the interest and the excitement and the views. And you can get to some really nice places on roads. You can, get quite far into the mountains on roads and have some great views. But just for me, the thought about where to put each footstep, if there's like roots and rocks and things like that underfoot, that just makes it much more of a jigsaw puzzle for your brain. So I just feel like I'm getting more of an all body workout for my brain, my core, and also my feet as well. I actually like that. And like the bits where most people will start to slow down, because I'm kind of like quite steady anyway, I don't slow down. So those are the bits where I'm like the fast person. So it's actually to my advantage to go on the trail because of my neat footwork. So it's a purely selfish reason, really. But it's funny that you say that in your club, because our club's the same. Like I hang out there, there's a group of like 12 of us that sometimes we go on a holiday together to the Lake District, which is a beautiful mountainous place in the northwest of England. And it's beautiful. And some of the people in our running club, they prefer the roads because it's just easier and they don't have to look at where they're going. And it just really stresses them out to be like trying to put their feet somewhere and slipping in the mud and tripping over a tree root. So it is funny that there's sort of two camps, isn't there? Some people like that simplicity and just going, and then other people need a little bit more of an edge to their running. And I'm definitely, because I came from a hiking background, so my background wasn't running at all, it was hiking in the mountains. So it's kind of the natural progression to stay in the mountains and just speed up a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's funny that like you just described me and my husband perfectly, because like I'm definitely the road runner. Like I don't like when it's too turny, it's too distracting. I don't get into like that flow state. I feel like I really love when it's just like you can see like 2 kilometers into the distance.
Hang on. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't like it when it's too turny? You love running on the track, and the track's turny all the time. It's always turning.
It is, but I guess it's because like it's going to happen. It's like if you're doing 3 laps of the track, those 3 laps are going to be exactly the same, and they're flat, and all you have to do is check your time every time you come around to make sure you're on pace, and that is wonderful for me and my brain.
That's my worst nightmare. That is a nightmare situation for me. I don't want to look at my watch. I don't care about what time I'm doing. If it's a nice view, then brilliant. I might stop, take a photo. So yeah, I'm more of a hiker than a runner.
Yeah, so my husband is the same.
Trail hiking handbook, really.
My husband is the same, because we recently ran a marathon, like Alan mentioned our training, but we recently ran a marathon, and my husband ran the same one. And at the end of the marathon, like he wasn't complaining that he was injured or anything like that, but he was like, there was one point, like I was just so bored. I was like, when is this going to end?
yeah, that's me. Like we have the fens that are just to the east of us. It's really flat, and there's these really long roads and paths that just seem to go on forever. And some of my friends like that, because they're just like, yeah, just run. I'm like, oh, I'm so bored. I want a turn. I want a tree. I want some kind of hump in the way. I don't know. It's like it's just different personalities, isn't it? And I think it's nice that the world is filled with different people, because I don't want everyone to go to the trails, even though I've written a book encouraging everyone to go to the trails. I don't actually want everyone to go there at the same time, because then they'll muck them up and there will be no space for us.
Yeah, it'll be too crowded. So it's actually good that there's people like me around.
Stick to the road. If you like the road, that's wonderful. You stick to the road. That's great.
So in terms of you wrote a whole book about it, but are there questions that beginner trail runners have that are maybe different from beginner road runners?
I suppose so, because I suppose a lot of people start running and they don't really know about trail running, so they sort of start on the pavements and they sort of become road runners through no fault of their own. And then they discover trail running. And I suppose the questions that are different there are like, do you need different stuff? Do you need different shoes? Do you need like to get a running pack, like a little vest pack? What food do you eat? Like, do I now need like a waterproof jacket and all this business? Some of the mandatory kit for trail races is a lot longer, the list, than for road runs. And then there's things like navigation as well that complicate things sometimes. Will I get lost? Yeah, like, do I need hiking poles? That kind of thing. So yeah, there are different questions, but I think initially you don't even need different shoes. If it's a dry day and it's a gritty path, anything off-road is going to be fine. It's just over here in the UK, we do have some quite muddy fields and things, and mountainsides and bogs, a bit more than the nice manicured trails that they have in the US and Canada. Canada. So there is like that whole getting a pair of grippier shoes business. But basically for the main, you just kind of wear the same things and just try a little bit at a time and ease in gently, and it's pretty much the same as road running, but more lumpy.
That's a great description.
Sounds like you've just described the UK as wet all the time.
Well, it's been raining all day yesterday. I just did a really, really rainy run today. It was so muddy that it was a path I wanted to go down. I actually had to go a different way because it was a river. It actually was a river. It was like knee-deep water. Yeah.
It's interesting because I do say to people, I was born in the UK, so I appreciate the UK for what it really is. But I do say to people, if you want a really good rain jacket to run in, or you want shoes for running in the mud, look at what the UK manufacturers are making, because they know how to make stuff to deal with those conditions.
Basically, yes.
So in the book, you actually list different types of runs, and some of them are like road runs, cross country, all the way to like obstacle course racing. You actually have a whole entire section about all these different runs. Some of them I didn't really know there was a category like that. Maybe you want to describe some of them, like maybe the more common ones, not the whole list, but like in terms of, let's say it's a beginner and they're looking for an event to enter for like their first trail event. Which one would you guide them towards? And I don't know if you want to go through some of them, like you mentioned one called hashing. And then
I thought you were going to mention that.
Mountain marathons and orienteering. Like we've kind of heard of mountain marathons and orienteering, like with another author that a bit wrote about his experience doing those things. If you were a beginner, would you guide a beginner towards some of these? And maybe you want to describe some of them and why or why not they're good for beginners.
Yeah, so I suppose though that list of things is like a list of all the types of running that you can do. So the book is about trail running, so that's what I would recommend beginners do in terms of getting off-road, just like do some off-road running. But the hashing that you talk about, that is actually quite good for beginners because everybody of different abilities can take part. Basically, that is a couple of people, they take a bag of flour. It's usually flour because it just like it's biodegradable and doesn't harm the environment in any way. And they put like a trail out. And so sometimes it's just one person. It's based on fox hunting, which is a terrible old-fashioned UK pastime for posh people. And so where people on horses basically run after a fox with dogs and kill it, which is obviously horrible and shouldn't be allowed. But nowadays we can do it with people instead, and we don't kill them, we just catch them, I think, again, and then everyone has a pint. It's much more it's much nicer these days. So what they do is they run along with a little bag of flour and they tip a little bit out every time they make a turn, or every time, like every few sort of 10 meters, or I don't know what they do. I've not done it myself, but a friend of mine does, and it's really fun because the faster people who are following the trail, they can the people who are making the trail, they sort of go off one way. They start earlier, they go off one way and then they come back, so they make these dead ends, so you sort of have to investigate each way that the trail goes off to check which way they've actually gone. So you send your faster people off first to check out the different directions that they've gone in, and then they come back to the rest of the group, and anyone who's at the back is just trotting along merrily and then just going the right way. So everybody gets to run together because the fast people are looping back all the time, and you just follow this kind of trail of flour until you meet the foxes, the front runners. I think that's the idea anyway. And then you all have a picnic and a pint at the end. They always meet in a pub or something, and it just seems like very sociable. They're all bonkers, all the people that do it. So if you are a beginner, they're really friendly, nice, supportive group to be with. So that's hashing. It might just be like a UK thing. I don't know if they have it overseas. But there's also orienteering. I definitely would recommend to beginners because there's so many different levels. You can start with the beginner courses, which are shorter and easier navigation, but gradually you can build up your navigation skills. So the great thing about orienteering is you can be the fastest runner in town, but if you are not going in the right direction, you are not going to win. So that's what I like about it, because I'm not the fastest person, but I could beat a really fast person just by being better at navigation than them. So that's a great way to learn. Orienteering in the UK is also very family orientated. So there's even a little string course for the beginners, which is like a piece of string tied between the trees. And even little toddlers can do that course. And they can go around and they can get to the right points because they're following the string, and it just kind of gets people into it. So if you're really rubbish at navigation, you could do this string course.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's orienteering. And then obstacle racing is good also for beginners, actually, because you can do often these obstacle courses. They'll have a really long one, a medium one, and a short one. So you could do like 5K with obstacles. And it's just really fun. You basically jog along until you meet a massive obstacle, like a slippery wall or a tunnel full of mud that you've got to crawl through, or some cargo nets that you've got to go up and down and get over the top of. Or maybe it's like a team thing and you've got to all stand on a plank and move at the same time so that you get somewhere, carry some blocks or some tires or something. And it's just really fun. It's a run interspersed with a load of fun activities. So I would recommend those for beginners. I mean, all of those 3 events that I've just talked about, they all have shorter or beginner friendly courses that you can do. So yeah, just get stuck in, do whatever you like. You might find that you like obstacle racing more than trail running, or you might find that obstacle racing just ruins a good trail run, and you can just try it and find out for yourself.
I think those kind of things are great for families where you've got a whole family and you'd like to get some exercise yourself. 2, you've got some family obligations. 3, you'd rather like to indoctrinate your children into some healthy pursuits, but they find going out for a run to be the most boring imaginable thing they would never ever do. So you can kind of sneakily indoctrinate them into trail running or running via these, not so much hash house, but orienteering and obstacle races are probably the what would you call it? The entrance
Gateway drugs.
The gateway drugs for running. Yes.
For trail running.
Yeah, your first hit is always free.
I guess maybe we'll talk more about the gear side of things, because I know you have a YouTube channel. I know you review gear, because we actually, me and my husband, watched some of your videos. I think like maybe last year or the year before, when we were looking for like running packs. And there's like so many brands and types, and you kind of like to see them and see how they fit, even if it's on someone else. So thanks for doing those. But also we're at a point where we've accumulated over the years, because we've been running for a long time. We've accumulated gear. So we buy like one item every so often. And so it's not too much of a strain. But let's say somebody that's starting out in trail running, they have nothing. What are sort of like the baseline, like you absolutely need these things kind of essentials? Like what should they start with, in what order? And then you can add also like what's kind of nice to have next, like what's the order of priority?
Yeah, so I would say nothing. Just what you use for road running is fine for trail running in the summer, probably. And then when you get to the times when it's going to be muddy, I think the first item you probably want to get is a pair of grippy trail shoes. So not like they probably don't do these in like the US and Canada, but like here we have like these proper football boot type trail running shoes that you can buy. They're called fell running shoes. They're like basically tractors for your feet. And so you probably don't need a pair of those. But you probably need like maybe 4 or 5 millimeter lugs there, just to something that's going to be grippy, but also gives you a bit of cushioning as well. So a pair of shoes with good grip is good. Then the next item that I would buy is a kind of a good waterproof jacket, probably. Either that or a running backpack. I say a waterproof jacket first. A kind of semi-lightweight one, like maybe like 250 grams if you're a woman, maybe 350 300 for a guy, because you can always tie that around your waist if you get too hot. So a waterproof jacket would be the next thing, just because on trails you might be, especially in the races, you might be going to a bit more exposed places, a bit more remote places where there's not necessarily like some buildings or anything that you can shelter in. You might be going up a hill, so probably a waterproof jacket is the next on the list. And then very shortly after, a little running pack, because you want to start carrying some snacks and some water with you as you start going. It's not that you'll be going necessarily further, it just might take you longer. So like a half marathon on trails could take you, say, like 3 or 4 hours, depending on how hilly it is, depending on how testing the terrain is, depending on how many selfies you take on the way around. So then I would get a backpack. Yeah. So I would get a backpack, and what I would get is a 10-litre backpack, because that's big enough to put everything in for winter and for like a long day out when you start getting even more experienced. But if you only want to take a few things, you can always pull the bungee cords tighter to batten it down. So it's always better to go for that in the middle a sort of size, just so that you don't end up having like a 3-litre pack and also like a 15-litre pack and a 10-litre pack. You could probably just get away with a 10 kind of ish, maybe 12-litre pack. So those are the first 3 items that I would buy. And then a nice to have after that is like a spangly watch, like a Garmin or a Sunto, or like a Coros that they have now, which have got amazing battery life. So they're just a nice to have. You can just do everything with a normal Casio watch. You can just, all you need to do really is tell the time really at the end of the day. But if you want to know stuff like pace, the distance that you run, your average pace, like maybe your altitude, like, you want to put it on Strava and you want to get all the stats, then you'll need a basic watch. And I use a good sort of improver to entry level watches, like the Garmin Forerunner 255. That does pretty much everything you need, including like very, very basic navigation. But then, when you get like into doing really big ultras and want to navigate, you want one of those really expensive watches with an actual map on. So that could be a good shout as well, but that's a lot further into it. If you start doing ultras, you want to get a pair of poles as well, a pair of lightweight poles. But yeah, those 3 things, and then maybe a watch. That would sort you out to start with.
Are you a pro poles or an anti poles person?
Oh, I'm a pro poles for sure. Yes, like anything over like, I think probably like a 50k I could do without poles. But then, and also it depends on the terrain. Like if you're doing something which involves like loads of scrambling, hands-on rock type stuff, super tricky terrain, it's actually harder to use poles because you've got to think about where they're going as well as your feet. But if you've got smooth, wide tracks, lots of ascent, really long distance, then definitely poles. It just it keeps you upright, opens up your chest, takes the pressure off your knees as well, especially on the downhills. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of poles. For like, I use poles in all my 50-mile races. Yeah, 50 miles plus, I would definitely use poles.
Okay, so maybe like you can help me, because I have issues with poles. I own poles because we've done some trail events, but so I have 2 issues. My first issue is I find that I will not fuel as often or as much. And I'll end up under fueling if I have poles in my hand, because you have to take them off and open your thing. And anyway, so that's one of my issues. My husband thinks that's ridiculous. He's like, just take your hand out and eat your thing and then put it back. But I like, I'm going to just admit that I'm lazy.
Your podcast partner thinks it's ridiculous as well.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm totally with you. I hate poles for that reason. Like, and navigating as well. If you're trying to hold a little map as well, it's really annoying eating with poles. I'm totally with you on that. Yeah, I'm afraid you just have to force yourself. Like you could put a timer on your watch every half hour to beep and remind you.
I've done that, and then I've ignored the timer.
Oh yeah. The other thing you could do is you could have one water bottle filled with some carbs, like some energy drink in a water bottle, and then you could, like, I wouldn't recommend having both, because then you want one water just for like pure thirst and drinking to thirst. But you could have one water bottle filled with energy drink, so that you're getting your fuel in that way as well. And then if you can just like do that, or like you can sort of crutch it under there, it's a bit easier to take on the food, because then you're not having to get into a pocket and get up. You're just sort of doing that. But yeah, it might be worth looking. What poles do you use? Are they just the hand loops, or are they the swanky glove things that you sort of clip into the top of the pole handle?
They're kind of glove-like. I mean, they're
like a little glove, and then it clicks in, and you're always wearing the gloves.
Well, yeah, except I don't think that you can click it in and out.
No,
I know what you're talking about. But they fit.
They have the ones you have. I know the poles that you have because I have the same. They're like a sophisticated loop that you wrap around your hand, and it kind of velcros in place around your hand.
Okay.
So it's like a hybrid between a glove and a loop.
It doesn't come off. Like it's not like, because I have ski poles and those have like, they come off, at the top, so you can kind of disconnect them. Yeah, but
maybe you need to treat yourself to a new pair of poles, because it'd be so much easier if you just had those poles that you could just loop yourself out of. Either the ones that just have a hand loop on, you then can't dangle the poles, can you? So that's a little bit harder. But if you treated yourself to one of those poles where it had a quick release, you could just really easily quick release yourself from it, put the two poles in one hand, and get your fuel that way. So maybe you need to treat yourself to some new poles.
Maybe that's a solution. I need more running gear.
Maybe you need a nose bag, like just get like a dry bag on you, just like dip in, or get Alan to feed you. Just get him to like feed snacks to you.
I could see your husband Andre with a nose bag. He'd invent a new set of trail running equipment.
Yeah,
nose bag feeder.
That would be funny. So my other issue with poles is I will never run with them down the hill because I'm way too scared of tripping over one of them, which is also a fear that my husband thinks is completely ridiculous. He'll like be bouncing around from rock to rock with these poles, and they're all over the place, and I'm like terrified. I will fold them up and put them away before I run down the hill. So I don't know if there's any solution for that, or if that's just like some of those like mental quirks that like you'll never get rid of.
No, I think you're totally founded there with your fear. I think, I've tripped over a pole before, definitely. But what I would do is I would find an easier hill to start with, just to get used to it. So find like a nice wide sort of gravelly or grassy hill, that's not got loads of rocks or anything where you have to really watch where you're putting the poles. And I would try that first. And I would also try, unless it's really steep and you're wanting to slow yourself down with the poles, just maybe planting the poles sort of behind you rather than in front of you. The only reason you'd plant them in front is if you want to use them as brakes and slow down, which I have done on some quite steep stuff before. But if you are just sort of running down the hill, you can just like trail them behind you if you want. You can even prong them behind you and go even faster down the hill. But maybe that's skiing.
Yeah, I think from a personal point of view, I think that nothing beats practice. So you were just saying there the idea of, getting them out on an easy hill and things like that. So climbing up a hill, you think I don't really need these poles, but use your poles anyway. So you get accustomed to having them out. I know the first time I ever used poles was when I entered the Transalpines run, which is like 7-day stage race across Europe. I think we started in Germany, we went through Austria and finished in Italy. And we have 7 days. Every day you get up in the morning and basically do a whole day of trail running through the mountains. Okay. And on day one, I thought, well, I'll need poles for this. So I should buy some poles, do a little bit of practice, and off I go. And on day one, I felt really awkward. And by day 7, I felt really comfortable. You sort of become sort of an extension of what you're doing. And you kind of start to instinctively feel to know, I really need poles. Here comes a big, long, steady climb. I'll need my poles out for this, and you get them out and away you go. And it starts to feel more and more natural. And I don't think there's too much substitute for that, really.
Yeah.
You just get them out once a year when you do one special event. They're always going to feel awkward.
But I think a lot of people do put their poles away to go downhill. Like, unless it's super steep and you need them as a brake, they can just be a hindrance. Like, I often just hold them, like 2 of them, like a Zulu warrior, like a spear.
That's what I do.
I just hold them like that. Not like a javelin, but just hold them by my side. So I think you're doing the right thing.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's a long, slow process of getting Liz to enjoy trail running. I don't know what it is about her, Claire. If you
Yeah,
have
you
a
don't
magic,
have to though.
if you have a
You
magic
don't have to
wand,
enjoy trail running.
yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I
Also,
think like if you're a road runner mentality and you like the whole like looking at your pace, doing the times thing, you have to just throw that all out the window. Like
yes,
maybe don't even take your watch with you and just
it's a different
jog.
sport.
Think
Yeah.
of it as a hike more than a run.
yeah, I think I like initially that's very hard to get over because we did we did a multi-day event, and remember one of the first times that these guys took me to we go to Mont Tremblant, which is like about hour and a half, 2 hour drive from Montreal, but it's a ski hill in the winter, and in the summer you can go up and down. There's trails, and we used it for training because it was about 3 kilometers to go up, and you get like 600 meters of elevation, and then
Wow.
you'd come down on the more there's a fire road which is like gravel all the way down. That's 5 kilometers to come down, so you get 8 kilometers for the like loop, and we would do 3 loops, and that's only 24K, and I would be completely toast when I'd finish that run, like just
Yeah.
completely destroyed, and we would be out there for like 4 hours, and
Yeah.
I'd look at my watch and I'd be so discouraged because it was only 24 kilometers, and I'd be like, I'm so out of shape, like I can't do this.
No, it's just the ascent. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a completely different ball game. It's just completely different. And the thing is, you can't even compare time to time as well, because the weather might be different,
Mm.
underfoot conditions might be different, the season's different. That's what I like about trail running, because
Mm.
yeah, you just can't really be that competitive. You just have to enjoy it for what it is.
I think you have to reprogram your mentality versus your street running and your times. Being out in nature and just like seeing the deer on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things are but you don't always see a deer, but you always see a tree, and you always see some rocks, and then you
Yeah.
always see a river. So just
Yeah.
seeing those sorts of things. I mean, Liz is starting to get the idea because I've noticed that she's developing a technique for going down easy downhills on trails. Probably, she knows what the technique is, so she'll probably tell you now if we ask her to tell our listeners about her positive mindset technique for going down hills. Liz.
Oh, is that I feel like
Put your
when you're
arms
going
out wide
like an
like
airplane,
an
and then
airplane,
yeah.
That's
and you
good.
go
And
That's
then
what
just
a
say
well runners do.
you go running down the hill,
wee.
and you go
Yeah.
wee.
That's perfect. That's great. That's what they
Yeah.
do. Like the fell runners, they dance down the hill.
Yeah, I find that it's best with non-technical descents for me, because like you get the full extent of the joy without like having to be worried about going flying, into a rock or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah.
I think also like a little bit of my well, I don't know, issue, I guess, is because proportionally, if you look at my like road running skills and then you bring me on the trail, like, my training partners, they become too fast for me. And so I'm basically doing most of the climbs by myself. Like when we go do these trail runs, because I'm just like completely gassed, and like I'm at my 90%, and they're still like so far ahead. So even if I see a deer, well, like it's by myself, like I have no one to share it with. So.
They should be running with you. Who are these training partners? Alan, you're not running off, are you? And leaving poor Liz
Oh yes, all the time.
down by the what?
With my
This is why you
husband.
don't like trails, because
With my
everyone's running
husband.
off and leaving you. Get some
Yeah.
nice ladies to run with. Get some ladies who are worse than you and run with them, and then you'll feel great.
Yeah, I should totally like bring some girls with me, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, bring the girls, bring the
yeah.
ladies. Yeah.
I have to confess, I usually stay with you for a while. I have good intentions.
Yeah, and then
after
you
a
see my
while,
husband running off, and they're
yeah,
very competitive with each other. It's
he just ignores you. Like, too
he
bad.
does.
I'm out of here.
He's like, this is my element. I'm going for it.
I stay with you
that
for a
might be
while, and
part
then
of
I
why
see
you
the
don't
gap.
like it, because like it's supposed to be sociable. So yeah, I say ditch these guys, just use them as road training partners and find some new people. It doesn't have to be ladies, it could be anyone who's a similar speed to you, and then you'll feel so much better about everything.
Probably
Okay,
good
good.
advice,
I
actually.
need somebody that likes to take some selfies as well. Like, because that's a
Yeah,
good distraction on the
I'll
trail.
be a lot slower than you.
You would be surprised.
No, I think you'll be a lot fitter than me.
Let me change the subject up a little bit and ask you about strength training, because it comes up in your book, Strength Training for Trail Runners. So you provide a whole series of exercises which are cool because they don't require sort of any special equipment. You can basically just read the book and just go for it. So are there some specifics that you're sort of targeting for trail runners, particularly, and sort of what do you suggest and how often?
So strength training is really important. Since I hit 40 in February, I've just been like, oh God, I don't have time on my side. I've got a toddler, I don't have time on my side anymore. I can't just rock up to these events and do them. So strength training is massively important because it makes you stronger, as you would expect, but it also makes you more efficient, like especially towards the end of a race when you're kind of your form's dropping. It helps you to hold your form so you're more efficient for longer, so you're using less energy. And it helps you recover better, not only like on the race itself, but just during your whole training program as well. You're recovering quicker as well because you're doing the strength training, making everything stronger. And it's really important for balance as well with trail running. So you're using your body in a different way, and all of these strength exercises have some form of like coordination and balance involved with them. So it's super really important for trail running especially. And so the ones that I would really recommend is you probably want to focus a bit on the legs. Like it's not probably that impressive if you can chest press 65 kilograms or something like that. You want to do a lot of squats and lunges, and then some single leg stuff as well, because basically running is all about like jumping from leg to leg, isn't it? So one of my favorites for that is the Bulgarian split squat, which is where you don't need any specific equipment whatsoever. You just put one leg like on the back of a chair, or I use my sofa at home, and so you're in a sort of a lunge position but just in one leg's the foot is on the back of the sofa, just like resting on the sofa, and then you just squat down on that leading leg. You can actually, it's best if you use some weights for that. So if you've got but you don't have to have weights yourself. You can just put a couple of, like a 2-liter lemonade bottle filled with water, get a couple of those, put them in a backpack, have that on your back, and then do the exercise with that on. So that will make your body work harder and build up the muscle. So that is a really good one to do. You can actually do that while you're watching telly, especially if you've got your foot on the back of the sofa. There's loads of really cool videos of how to do that online. So I would suggest like Googling that. On Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, I've also got like loads of HIIT sessions and like strengthening sessions. So just Google Wild Ginger Running exercises and my exercise playlist will hopefully come up on if you Google it, the YouTube videos will come up. So yeah, that's really good. And the thing with strength is I try to do 30 minutes once a week. You don't actually have to do the 30 minutes all together. If you've only got 10 minutes of time to do your strength, like 3 days a week, do that. Like it's better than doing no strength at all. And you can actually do strength in a lot of places that you wouldn't have otherwise thought. So, like if you're boiling the kettle for a cup of tea, maybe if you work in an office, you've got co-workers who will be find this amusing, but you can actually do like, just do 5 squats whilst you wait for the cup of tea to boil or brew or whatever you're doing. In Britain, we drink a lot of tea, so that's a good one to do. You can do single leg squats as well. Just instead of just squatting down on both legs, you can just stand on one leg and squat that way. And so you can do that. Whilst you're brushing your teeth, you could just stand on one leg and balance. You could roll up a towel and stand on that. That makes it a little bit more difficult, strengthens up the ankles. And then the other one is the watching TV with the Bulgarian split squats. You can do all sorts of exercises while watching TV. And we all try, like, seem to find an hour to watch telly at the end of each day, don't we? If we just found 10 minutes within that hour of telly to just do 10 minutes of strength exercises, like maybe what your physio has been telling you to do, like if you've got an injury, or just, one of the exercises from my book, just do one of them every day. just for 5 minutes, and you'll see the benefit for sure.
During that hour of television, after you've done your 10 minutes of strength, you can do another 10 minutes of like rolling and stretching and all those other things you have in the book as well, because those are
great
good
idea.
too. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, great idea.
My secret tip for putting in a little bit of strength work is after the shower, I've been instructed by my wife that I'm supposed to wipe the inside, all the mist off the inside of the shower with this like window washer thing that's in the shower. And most people have them in their showers now. So what I do is I do 10 squats and I go down,
and up,
down.
And then you're sweaty again. You have to have a shower again.
It goes on and on.
Oh, he's just constantly squatting in there. What is he doing in there? Oh,
why is that shower taking you so long?
But it's
this shower is so clean. So also maybe this kind of has to do with strength as well, but in your training plans, you prescribe easy pace on a muddy trail run. So why muddy trails?
Well, I suppose maybe it's a bit Brit centric here. You might not encounter such muddy trails on the well-groomed paths of Canada and maybe the US.
They're not also well-groomed.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's good advice then. Yeah, it's just to get you used to it. It's just to get you used to slipping and sliding around, and just to get used to the extra time that it's going to take you as well. And also you can do a few things. Like in the book, it says in the muddy trails, there's like a technique section, and I talk about how to aim for the islands of grass, like little patches of vegetation where you can get a purchase, or if there's like a little island of pebbles where you see the mud isn't as deep as the other mud, you can sort of practice aiming for those things. So yeah, that's why that's in the book there, just to get you used to it, because you don't want to just come across it on the day and go, oh my God, I've never run in mud before.
One of the things that people get really scared of, I think, sometimes, and I hear Liz talking about this a little bit, is falling on trails.
Yeah.
I guess if I was to talk to everybody I know who runs trails on a semi-regular basis, everybody's fallen at some stage, except for Liz. Liz is the only person I know who has never fallen, because she takes so much care. She has fallen in the middle of a tarmac road.
Yeah, I tripped over a speed bump actually.
Tripped over a speed bump. She didn't see that it was. So I've seen her fall. I've seen her fall on road runs. I've never seen her fall on trails, but everyone else that I know, apart from Liz, has fallen at some stage. So is it an occupational hazard?
I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose when I feel like a bit dicey, I just slow down, because I mean, you just slow down even to a walk, and then you just feel like you get your grip again. If you've got your poles, that's really useful, especially downhill at that point, because you're just like but yeah, it's usually when it gets easier that you fall over, because your concentration has gone. So I will have come down like some horrendous rocky patch, like scrambling down something, and then I'll just trip over my own pole, like just running along an easy path. So yeah, it is a bit tricky, and there are certain people that are like, oh, just switch your brain off and just head down the hill, but it doesn't work for everyone. And I think if you are worried that you're going to fall over, just go slowly, because as we said, we're not watching the clock here. So if you want to go slowly because you feel like you need a bit more time and a bit more purchase, then you go slowly and, get down on your bum, do a bum shuffle, or get your poles out and just use them as walking sticks or a Zimmer frame type thing. And just go a bit slower.
I'm happy I can get down on my bum now and slide down the hill instead of running down
it. That is a legitimate technique from Wild Ginger Running.
There'll be a 1% gradient, and Liz will be down on her bum, shuffling along, and everybody be walking past it going, what the mess is going? A super thing for Canada, though, and I'm kind of semi-looking forward to it as winter comes on, is going trail running in the snow. And the nice thing about that is you can fall over if you're running on a trail in the snow. You can fall over and you just land in a big snow bed, and you laugh and you just get up and keep moving. So that's kind of fun. Also, because it can be icy sometimes, people are worried about just slipping and falling generally on the street. And the advice we give is take smaller steps and don't commit all your weight to any one movement. Don't put all your weight invest all your weight into one movement where your foot might slide on from underneath you. So if it's looking dicey, maybe increase your turnover, but take smaller baby steps. And therefore, if you slip, you usually regain yourself before you fall. I would say in winter, I'll probably slip 100 times and wouldn't fall over because of that. Basically, I'm looking to just take small steps and correct.
Yeah, that's good advice. And you can get these little spike things that you put on your shoe. That's like,
oh yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, they're
I'm a fan
really
of
good.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first snow will fall. Liz will put those on and won't take them off again
until spring
This
rolls
sounds
around.
very sensible to me. I will be running with Liz.
We'll be running along the road and we'll hear clack, 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 clack. Go, what's that noise? What's that? Oh, that's Liz. She thought it might snow today, so she put her spikes on.
Yeah, and the worst part is like you can just take them off because they're like a rubber thing that you pull over your shoes. But sometimes it's a hassle, and then you never know. You run down the street and now you need them again, and you have to put them back on, and that's even harder because you have to take your fingers out of your gloves and your fingers are gonna freeze. So I just leave them on, but everybody hears me coming behind them.
You need these shoes. They have in Sweden. They have these shoes with little like studs in them, and they call them like shoes.
Are those like ice bug? Yeah.
I get a pair of them. Yeah. Or you can get ice screws that you screw into the bottom of your shoe. I've done that before because I had a pair of road shoes that went really slick and I really liked them. They were so comfy, but I wanted to wear them like in the mud and the ice and stuff. So I just screwed some ice screws into them and they were really grippy.
Oh,
but they
nice. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't have it all, right? So,
yeah.
So I think we're kind of on the path of maybe like talking about injury because we're talking about iciness and falling and things. So one injury that you mentioned in your book and that I feel like trail runners get this more than road runners is blisters. I feel like trail runners are always talking about blisters, having blisters, popping blisters. So I guess is my perception right? And also, should we be popping them or should we just leave them alone?
Oh, it depends. I don't know. Trail running and blisters do seem to go hand in hand. Maybe it's because there's more mud involved. There's like longer time frames for doing the same distance. So like even if you're doing a half marathon, you're like maybe even running 4 hours for that. So there's a longer time to be in the shoes, sliding around. And there's like usually more gradient. So like more hills. So you like maybe your shoes like if you've not got them really tight, your foot's like shunting always to the end of your shoe. So you could like get that black toenail thing that trail and ultra runners are always talking about. I do think that there is more propensity for trail runners and definitely ultra runners to get blisters. But popping them is debatable. So in the book it does tell you when to pop, when not to pop. That is the question. And basically if it's in the way and if it's causing you loads of pain, like if it's like between your toes or really bulbous blister, then it could be a good idea to pop it, and you've got to make sure everything's really sterile. So that's really quite hard within the context of a race to make sure everything's really sterile. But if you're on like a multi-day race, then that you should have a blister pack with you where you've got like a bit of a needle that you can get in there and drain it and then put your coating over the top of it, your plasters and things on top, and sort of pad it out. Like basically you shouldn't puncture the skin unless absolutely necessary. So if you can bear that blister just being there, that's what it's there for. It's basically a cushion. So try and put up with it if you can, but if it's really causing a problem, then you might have to pop it. There's a whole hour-long chat on my YouTube channel about blisters with a medic from the Cape Bath Ultra and the Dragon's Back race. So that is definitely worth watching. There's also a book you can get called The Complete like Care of Blisters book, which looks amazing. So if you're prone to blisters, have a look at that book, and also have a look at your shoes and your socks and your insoles. Those 3 items, chop and change them up until you find the perfect fit, because it is possible to run 100 miles without many blisters. I have heard. I haven't done it yet.
Okay, that's all great advice. Something to strive
I
for.
don't think I'm going to read a whole book about blisters.
No, it's not to read. It's
seems a
not like a
little
reading book.
extreme.
It's a dip in. It's like a dictionary. You just dip in and out when you need it. You turn to the chapter on the heel.
Chapter 7 on the little toe blister was
Yeah,
really
exactly.
exciting. I'm
Yeah,
not feeling it
riveting book.
somehow.
I think it's mainly diagrams.
Alan would rather just have blisters.
Yeah, I've yeah, I've run races where I've just had no blisters, and then races where I just get blisters for seemingly no reason. There probably is a reason, you're just not aware
Could
of
be
it.
the
You got some
temperature.
sand in, or basically, if you get enough blisters, you're forced to learn a technique to deal with them. Otherwise,
Yeah, I hate blisters. They're like the one thing that will DNF me a race. If my feet are in so much pain, it's like walking on knives with a wasp stinging you every step.
Personally, this is not medical advice, anyone, but personally, I'm in favor of popping, because I find it gets sore around the edges because it's the pressure of the blister is pressing out on the edges of where the blister is, and that's where it hurts. And if you pop it, that goes away. But you've got to have, usually what I do is I go small pop, squeeze a lot, bombard it with antiseptic cream, and then cover it up. So make sure it's clean, pop it, bombard it with antiseptic cream, cover it up. And that usually sometimes works.
You're not dead yet, Alan. You're not dead yet.
Yeah. We're moving on. Okay, enough about blisters. Everybody's tuned out. Everybody's gone off to their second
No, I don't want to
favorite
run trails or
podcast.
get blisters.
Yeah. Let me ask you about race pace. So
You're asking the wrong person.
So we've done a couple of introductory trail races, and now we've decided, hey, this is neat. I like this. I'm going to actually enter a race and try to like run competitively a little bit, or set a new PR or something like that. The trouble is with trail races is that you could be running a 10-minute mile, or you could be running a 20-minute mile, or a 25-minute mile, depending on the terrain and what's in front of you, what sort of tracks in front of you. So you can't actually, not like road races where, okay, there are hills, but you can more or less get yourself onto to know what your race pace is. I know in a lot of detail what my race pace should be for a 10K race or a half marathon or a marathon on the roads. But if you put me into a trail race, although I'm extremely, I would say, experienced with road running and pacing, I'll go, okay, it's a trail race, it's 20 kilometers. I have no idea what pace I should move at. What do you do?
You don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
You just go, oh, well, one of the things you could do is, like, if you're kind of a mid-pack runner, you could always have a look at last year's results and see like what the average race time was, and that might give you some idea. The other thing, what I do when I like map out my ultras to see how long that should take me, is I just use the hiking rule, which is Naismith's rule. So that's basically like, I just work on about, I think Naismith's might be 3 miles an hour, but I think I work on about 4 miles an hour, and then every 10 meters of ascent I add on 1 minute, and that's a very conservative estimate. So I'm always like beating those times every time I come to a checkpoint, so that feels really good. So you can use a rule like that to sort of work it out. But even that's not going to tell you whether it's really, really muddy, really, really rocky. And those are the kind of things that can really slow you down on trail. But that's a great thing, because even if you talked about a PR or a PB that we call them over here, personal best, you could get a PB one year and then it could be really windy the next year, or it could have rained all day the day before and it's churned everything up and it's really muddy. So even though you're really fit, you're just as fit as you were the year before, you post a longer time just because the elements are against you. So you're sort of you're not racing the other people, you're not even racing yourself, you're racing the course, the terrain, the elements, the temperature, the wind speed, everything like that. So I think pacing in a trail race, you can have a vague idea, you can have an estimate, but it just might not play out like that. And I think that's one of the charms. That's why I like it, because you never quite know what's going to happen.
And so how do you not go out too fast? Because I think maybe that's Alan's problem. Because he ends up in the medical
hard.
tent.
It is hard not to go out too fast. There are various tricks you can do, like in a race, you could start right like at the back of the race, and then you have to weave through everybody to come through. You can also make yourself chat to people at the start. It depends how long the race is. Like if you're doing an ultra 50 miles, then yeah, you want to like start really slowly so you can chat to people at the start. But just having a conversation with the person next to you in the first mile or so can stop you just going like straight out of the starting blocks like a greyhound. So that can really help as well. Yeah, and then they're the two big things that I would do to stop yourself going out too fast. And then the other third thing you probably need to do is just use experience and trust to know that you need to hold yourself back. So you could even look at the pace on your watch. You could like look at your heart rate, consider your perceived rate of exertion, and just think, oh my God, I'm going at like 8 out of 10 here. I probably should be going at like 5 at this moment in time. Depends how long it is. If it's 5K, go full out. But if it's like 20 miles, then you probably want to hold a bit back. So it takes experience, definitely. And it might take a few years of doing that race. And sometimes you can hold the pace back and then go, oh no, I should have pushed harder at the beginning. But I would say more often than not, if you get to halfway and you feel like things are still going a bit easy, that's the time to then start pushing away. Similar to road racing, really, I suppose.
It is. It's similar. Yeah, I think it's similar to marathoning because you kind of have to be like at the half marathon point. Like you shouldn't be completely exhausted and thinking, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do another half marathon. You should be more like, okay, I'm feeling in control. I mean, I guess it shouldn't feel easy because like you still have a half marathon in your legs, but it shouldn't feel like you're sort of at the end of your rope either.
Yeah. And it helps to look at the gradient profile as well of the race so that you know when the hills are coming, because you could have like a really hilly ending, or you could have like 3 significant hills throughout the course. So you probably want to, when that kind of thing happens, I like to sort of try and calculate what time I should be at the top of the hill as well as at the checkpoints. So that can be really handy as well. So yeah, it is a bit of a dark art, but those are all the different techniques that you could use to sort of try and pace yourself.
Yeah, I've had an issue where I've been running in a 50K trail ultra, and I've started to feel like, oh, I'm bonking a bit. I need to slow down. But then I've got this girl next to me. She says, eat this gummy dinosaur. Eat these gummy dinosaurs. You'll be fine and you can run for a bit more. You know, we have to learn not to take too much notice of these people. I now have a permanent...
A gummy dinosaur sounds great.
I now have a permanent allergy to orange gummy dinosaurs.
And they used to be Alan's favorite.
Do you start your fueling like after half an hour or after 90 minutes?
Yeah, to half an hour, I would say 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. So you are fueling little and often, because some people wait like 90 minutes until they start fueling because they're like, oh, that's how much is in my muscles. I'll wait till then, but then it's too late. So yeah, starting after half an hour is good. So that fueling pacing sounds good.
Yeah, what you need to do is you need to run with the person that's feeding you those orange gummy dinosaurs. You need to run with her at the beginning and not wait until she catches you halfway through the race.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just one race. Take one race. Just take one race where you run with Liz and see what happens. And you might find that your mind is blown.
It could be the answer, actually. That could be the answer. Because yes, I was ahead of Liz, and then she came up, punished me with the dinosaurs thing, and then ran off whistling happy tunes while I was in a personal hell.
Alan didn't want me to wait for him, and I did leave him at an aid station, so I felt like he was safe.
He was probably safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I certainly gave the med tent something to do at the end.
Oh, poor Alan.
Okay, we have things to learn about trail running.
We all do. We just don't ever stop learning. Definitely.
So I guess maybe since we're kind of on the topic of races, do you have any tips on, because there are so many trail races you can pick from, do you have any tips on picking a race? Like, should you just consider the distance, or do you consider the location, or do you choose one that you're going to like the views, or how do we pick these trail races from like this long list of options?
Yeah, and there are so many these days, aren't there? Like
Mhm.
there's just, you could race every weekend if you want to, which is great because there's a real variety of races available. I would say play to your strengths. If you are a person that likes really steep, rocky, technical ascents, go for like something in, I don't know, Scotland, where you're going to go in Glencoe and clamber over Annahegic or something terrifying. So go for
Sounds
something like
terrifying.
that. Maybe not for the first one, but if you're a person who really likes road running and you're just coming from a road running background and you kind of like flat stuff, then a canal towpath can be really good. Or ones in Britain, it tends to be like more in the southwest, southeast, kind of England, that tends to be more rolling hills, like the Cotswolds, the Chilterns, like the South Downs, North Downs, that kind of thing. So those can be more rolling. The paths are wider. They can be quite slippery and muddy, but they're generally like, some of them can be quite gritty and a bit like the ones over in the US and Canada. And then as you kind of get north, the paths kind of get like muddier and rockier and boggier because just like it rains more up there. And it's more mountainous as well. So there's more mountainous areas like Snowdonia and the Peak District and Lake District, and then all in Scotland as well. So yeah, choose one that excites you. If it scares you too much, then that's probably bad. But maybe you want like an equal measure of excitement and terror. That would be a good one to choose. And something that kind of inspired you. Like if you like fancy dress in the middle of the night, then there's this great race in Scotland by Rat Race. It's called like the Mighty Deerstalker, and everyone wears a deerstalker hat, which is like a hat from the olden days made of tweed with flaps down the side, and you look like someone going on a fox hunt basically. And so you're going through the mountains with a head torch on, like with a flare or something, and everyone's in fancy dress. It's all very fun. Or if you just want quite an understated low-key one, you might want to go to a fell race, rock up, run at the back. Distance is definitely key as well. Like I would say, if you are a road runner that likes half marathons, go for a 10-miler. If you like marathons, go for a 20-miler, or a half marathon even, because you might find that, you know, if you're a 3-hour marathon runner, it might actually take you 3 hours to do a trail half marathon, the first one you do. So you might be sliding all over the place and it might be really hilly. So look at the distance, do less than you think you can do on roads. And then look at the ascent as well, because that's going to be massive. So if it's, you know, half marathon with 1,000 meters of ascent, that's going to be really hilly. So have some sense of the ascent as well. Maybe for your first one, don't choose one that's too hilly. But again, you don't want a completely flat one because that's kind of boring. So, and that's the reason that you're going on trails. So yeah, pick a place that inspires you, a little bit less distance than you're used to make up for the fact that there will be probably more ascent. And look at the aid stations as well and the cutoff times. Like if you're cruising the back of the pack, then you might want to go for one with like a really generous cutoff time so that you can do like, you probably will be doing a lot of walking up those steeper hills, but you know, just in case you need to walk some of the flat bits as well, because you get a bit knackered. So generous cutoff times is good, and a bit of a party atmosphere when you get back. Like, you know, choose one with a bit of a festival atmosphere. There might be ice creams, bouncy castles, stuff for the kids, food, a drumming band to start you off with. You know, a bit of a festival atmosphere. I recommend for the first one.
You forgot beer.
And beer, yes, beer. Well, I have a toddler now, so I'm limited to how much beer I want to consume. Yeah, a nice glass of orange juice at the end.
Exactly, orange juice.
One of the things about trail running that I've noticed, certainly here, and I think it's also true, you know, if you look at the fell running history in the UK, is it has sort of a local, rustic, sort of village fair type atmosphere often to it. You know, it's done by locals or people who are absolute diehards of the sport. And it's one of the things that I love about doing those sorts of events. It's really kind of wholesome and very inclusive, and there's not very much elitism. And you know, I remember once, for example, sitting having, this is just sort of an anecdote, I got distracted, sorry, but I'll tell you. Sitting having dinner at the end of a one day on a 5-day stage race, and having dinner and being sat next to some guy, and I was saying, oh, he's saying, did you have a good day? And I was saying, yeah, I had a great day. It was really fun. And I could see he was some sort of elite guy. And I eventually worked out it was Max King, if you know Max King. who
Yeah.
is a very elite
Yeah.
trail runner. I said, "Oh, I saw you running away." I said, "I stopped and took a few pictures because it was just so beautiful. I can't keep up with the sorts of things that you guys do." And he said, "No, no, 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 no. That's what you have to do." Says you have to stop. He said, I stopped and I took a few snaps and says that's what it's about. And I thought, wow, that just kind of typifies the attitude and the sort of the atmosphere of trail running. It's the love of the trails and everything else is second to some extent. And that brings me around to my sort of little question about the sort of controversy we've seen just recently with UTMB. For people who don't know, UTMB are the people who put on really big ultra runs, very famous for the thing that they're acronymed for, which is the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc. But they're now a massive organization taking over a lot of big trail runs around the world. And we saw a big controversy in trail running a few weeks ago where they seemed to have a situation where they pushed out Gary Robbins' grassroots run. I'm praising it a little bit because there's some complex bits to the story, but we've got a situation where there's this big organizational behemoth that seems to be sort of taking over the places that were formerly occupied by grassroots runners. Does this spell the meteoric growth of trail running as a sport? And it's going to be fantastic because there's going to be so many more sponsors and interest, or does this spell the beginning of the end of all the nice rustic love of the sport that we've known so well?
Oh, I hope not. I think at least here in the UK, I know that there's lots of different options. So you can have you can go to a big all singing all dancing event like ones that are run by the UTMB. I think they're owned by Ironman now, and I think that's where the zooming high uplift in sponsorship has come. And there's been quite some controversy over here about their recent sponsorship with Dacia, the car brand, because it's like not very eco-friendly for a trail race to be sponsored by a car brand. It's like the limit of what we should accept as trail runners in a lot of people's opinions. So yeah, and then there's that whole controversy where Gary Robbins felt pushed out by the fact that it was getting harder and harder for him to organize that trail race, so he eventually stopped. And then, what do you know, UTMB and Ironman come in with loads of cash and they get to put on a trail race there, and it seems like all the barriers were lifted for them because they got loads of cash. So yeah, I kind of hope that there's space for both. And it does seem to be that people who don't know a lot about trail running will go for those big events. Like the people that do the London Marathon, like they just do the London Marathon once, they never run again in their lives, that kind of thing. It seems like it might be going a bit that way with trail running. But if you're in the know with trail running, that there's loads of grassroots events and you want to support them. And I do hope that not too many will be pushed out. But I do think it is important as trail runners and ultra runners that we do make a stand at some point as to where we want trail running to go, what we want in terms of environmental sustainability, like how we want to define ourselves in this arena. I do think it's important for us to make a stand at these things, and even if we do get bulldozed, at least we tried. So yeah, I think there will always be a space for grassroots events and these big all singing or dancing events. But it is just really hard. Also, you want the sport to grow in popularity, but when sports do grow in popularity, you inevitably get like the whole commercialism. You get like huge prices for things. You get sponsors that you wouldn't otherwise enjoy. Like, I don't know, maybe one year big oil like Shell or BP might sponsor the UTMB, and that would be awful. But yeah, it's hard to really stop that unless everybody decides no, like that's not where we want to go. But there's so many beginners that don't really know, that are just coming into the sport and going, oh yeah, this is great. So as old timers, it's probably important that we get the word out to people and get as many people to say what they think is possible, because if we don't want our sport to go that way, then we should try to direct it in a different way. But hopefully these things can exist side by side, hopefully, because there will always be people who want a big razzmatazz over trail running, and then there'll be people who think that's awful. So it'd be nice if there was room for both, and it would be nice for everybody in every area of life, not just trail running. It would be nice if everybody got a bit more aware of our environmental responsibility, really. That's my opinion anyway.
So I guess our running book reviews message is support your local trail race organizers so that they don't go under and are more likely to be more eco-friendly.
Yeah, and support your local bookshop as well. Don't just get it on Amazon.
There you go. So
There's
actually,
an intro.
Yeah, we can actually get into that. But before we do, so maybe just if you wanted to say a little bit about who you wrote this book for specifically. I know you said like beginners, but also how did you envision people reading this book? Like, we read it cover to cover because that's what we do. But it really looks almost like a magazine with more pages because you have really sections, like little nice little like charts and descriptions of things and glossaries and things. And do you think that people should read the book like cover to cover, or did you design it more to be a bit like a magazine where they dip in where they need to?
Yeah, I'm glad you said it looked a bit like a magazine, because magazines is my background. So that was like the idea behind it. So there's little box outs throughout of like expert tips, like trail hacks, I think I call them, little stories from real people, little expert tips as well, and little quotes as well. It's just because like no one wants to just read, unless it's a story, no one wants to read like tons and tons of just text. So you've got to break it up a little bit. So yeah, I mean, the book is, you can read it from cover to cover. That's fantastic that you did that. I would probably, like, if I was coming to a new sport, I'd probably dip in. So like if I had an injury, I'd go in the injury chapter. If I wanted a training plan, I'd go to the training plan chapter. If I wanted to find out more, like there's a good index at the back. You can just like almost Google like whatever you want in this index area here. So if you want to look for gear, you can look for running packs. So it kind of is designed just as a bit of a handhold, as like a little friend, really. So you can just turn to them whenever you have a question about anything and look in the index and just go, oh yeah, like the answer's in there. But of course you can read it from cover to cover. I don't mind however you read it, as long as you read it.
And so now I guess this is where you can plug all the independent bookstores. Where do you want to direct people to get a copy?
Oh, definitely the independent bookstore, your local independent bookstore. If they don't have it, get them to order it in. Yeah, that's where I would direct everybody. Yeah, or you can just get it from your friend secondhand. I don't mind if you pass it around.
Perfect.
Oh no, we're going to have everybody in our club hassling us for our copies now.
Oh,
Normally
no,
we
make
say,
them
oh,
buy
we
new
got them
ones.
as review copies. We can't share them with you, but you've just given people permission.
Yeah, yeah. If you do buy one, obviously that helps me out. So I would recommend everybody buy their own copy.
I'll edit that other thing out so we don't get hassled.
Yeah, scrap that bit.
And where can people follow you if they want to? I mean, we've already given some insight into that, but maybe you'd like to tell us a bit more about where we can follow you, Claire, and what you're up to now.
Yeah, so the best place to follow me is Instagram. I am also on Facebook, but yeah, so Facebook and Instagram is just at Wild Ginger Running. I was on Twitter. I kind of got bored of Twitter. I am still on there, but I don't really go on there. But it's Wild Ginger Runs on there. I don't really look at that anymore. But Instagram is a good place to follow me. And Facebook. I've got a website as well. It's wildgingerrunning.co.uk, and there's a little shop on there. So you can get the book on there, but it actually takes you to Amazon. Sorry, everybody, because I don't know your local independent bookstore. So you can go on there. And yeah, my YouTube channel is Wild Ginger Running. So the best way to access the massive archive of content that is now on there is by typing in your query to Google. And then after the query, write Wild Ginger Running. So if you want to look for best backpack, put best backpack for running, trail running backpack, Wild Ginger Running, and that should bring up everything that Wild Ginger Running has on it. So you'll get my reviews and any other information that I have on that topic. So that's the best way to look for me. Use Google and just put Wild Ginger Running on there.
And we hear you have another book in the works.
Yes. So this one was the Ultimate Trail Running Handbook.
Yes.
And the training plans go up to 50k, which is 30 miles, which is just like coming into the ultra running arena. So the next one is called the Ultimate Ultra Running Handbook. And that has 50k training plans as well. And it will also take you all the way up to 50 miles, 100k, and then 100-mile training plans in that book. And it's all about ultra running. And I've been on a bit of an ultra running journey myself this year. So I've learned so many tips. I just wanted to share them with everybody, because I think that nowadays the marathon is not enough, it seems, anymore. Everyone wants to do an ultra marathon. Everybody wants to run like 50 miles. Everyone wants to run 100 miles. God knows why. So in this book is everything that will, all the tips that will let you train for that and hopefully enjoy most of it as well.
That second bit sounds like it's key, I think.
Yeah, because you only live once, right? We're not in a war zone. We're paying to do these things. So if you're moaning all the time whilst doing your run, you're doing something wrong. You want to get out there and you want to enjoy it. Like, you don't have to be like a cheerleader all the time. Like, obviously, we'll be ups and downs. But, we do pay to do this. We are really privileged, like everybody, well, a lot of people who do this, we've got a bit of money to spare. We've got a bit of time to train. Life is hard, obviously, but we're making lives harder for ourselves by doing this ridiculous running thing. So the main point is to enjoy it.
If you want to get into running lots and lots and lots of trail kilometers, and don't think you have the initial stamina for, 100 miles or the Marathon des Sables, where you're going to have to carry all your food for 5 days on your back and your tent or whatever. My recommendation would be go for these stage runs. We ran for 3 days in Moab earlier this year, and we've run in the Selkirk Mountains, sort of in British Columbia, for 5 days. And you sleep each night, and everything's provided for you. You get up in the morning and you run in the mountains. And you get up the next day, you spend all the time kind of trying to recover from the first run, and then you get up the next day and run. And it's super accessible. Two, the organization of these things, usually the people put on a lot of things that make it quite joyful. Like they'll have volunteers who are crazy. People get dressed up in fancy dress and try to feed you alcoholic substances that you really shouldn't be drinking while you're running. And stopping to sing songs with you, give you hugs, and really create a party atmosphere and really put the joy into the trail running. And that's a fantastic way of accessing long distances without the pain and agony of the 100th mile through the second night where the world is ending and are you going to make it?
That does sound great. I am booking me a ticket over to Canada. If I wasn't so worried about the climate crisis, I would be over there immediately.
Yeah, but I think that you guys have Alan did one year the Transalpine run. And I think that's probably very accessible because from what I understand, you guys hop on a train to any country, or something like that. Yeah. So way more climate friendly than flying for sure. Yeah. I think you need a buddy for that one. As Alan explained to me, because it's a safety thing. They want you to run with a buddy, but I'm sure you could find somebody. I like this multi-day formula. I can't really wrap my head around 100 miles like in one shot, but I could definitely do 100 miles in like 5 days.
Yeah. And that's probably a much nicer way to do 100 miles.
End up meeting a lot of people that you probably wouldn't otherwise, because every day it's the same faces at the start line, and they usually organize some kind of like a group. Well, it depends on the race, but the ones we've done, one of them had like kind of like banquets every evening. And that was pretty fun because it's all the runners, like you go have supper together and there's a slideshow from the day. And it was really well organized. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to see a new country as well. I did the Ice Bug Extreme in Sweden, and that was 3 days of like just like I don't know, like half marathon-y, 20 like 21K type running. And that was really lovely over 3 days. And there was all local food at the end, and the local producer came and gave us a chat about like the sausages or the coffee or whatever it was that we were imbibing or eating. And it was just really, really nice. Really loved it.
Nice.
There was a sauna, and there was the ice cold sea. So we'd alternate between jumping in the sea and getting in the sauna. Proper Swedish affair, but it was really good. Good memories of that trip.
Nice.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to getting copies of your new book, maybe even before it comes out, and having you on again to talk about that in due course.
Yeah, that would be thrilling. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on the show. It's really kind of you, and thank you so much for reading the book and enjoying the book. I'll pay you later. And and thanks for sharing it with all your friends. It's really cool of you.
It's our pleasure. We're just going to give our summary thoughts on the book and outro, and then we'll get you off for your weekend. What's left?
Thank you. I can hear my little boy racing around downstairs. I know how many ice creams he's had now.
Oh my goodness.
He did have a little bit of wine earlier as well with dinner. He wanted to try Mummy's wine.
Quick summary on The Ultimate Trail Running Handbook by Claire Maxted. Well, first of all, the book is a great Christmas present, and it's that time of year. So for the runner in your life, the reason it's a great Christmas present is for what you've heard. You know, it's sort of like a mega magazine. You can dip into it. It's full of inspiring photographs and advice of all types on all sorts of subjects around trail running. There's even a recipe section. So there's even, if you want to bake some trail running orientated, useful food, it's there for you. If you're feeling a bit burnt out on the road, so you just fancy a change up where you can take your eyes off your watch and enjoy the raw beauty of running, The Ultimate Trail Running Handbook is for you, I would say. So get your copy from your local bookshop now. What are you waiting for?
So I guess I'll just add a little bit. A stunning cover photo. So, you know, if you're going to if you're going to pick up this book at one of the shops, I mean, the cover photo is just amazing. Also, perfect format for beginners. It touches on a lot of topics, but not too in depth, so it's not too overwhelming. And even for the experienced trail runner, I would say that there are probably some tips in here that you know will give you that little aha moment, like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. I love the lists and definitions of terms, like all of the different types of runs. I actually had no idea there were so many types of running in the world. So that was really eye-opening, actually. And I thought that the list of exercises in the beat injury chapter, they were very generous. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there, and most of it is like with minimal or no equipment. So it takes away your excuses for not doing strength training, along with what we mentioned during the podcast of, you know, you can just do as much or as little as you have time for. Also, if you really like running books, which if you're listening to us, I think you probably do, Claire covered a whole list of 12 options. So you can like look through that list and see what you're going to read next. So all in all, that's a great book.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher Bloomsbury for providing review copies of the book, and a great big thank you to Claire for spending time with us today. If you'd like to leave us some feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in future episodes, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter or X, we are reviews_running. Please follow us on social media to find out about new episodes, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and you're wondering how you could help us out, there are a few ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word, get the word out to your friends, share a link of your favorite episode, or just get on the podcast platform, go down the list and find a book that interests you and listen to the episode. You can also help us out by leaving us reviews on Apple or on Spotify. We're also on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee. Just go to Buy Me a Coffee You'll get prompted probably to buy us a coffee, but you don't have to if you don't wish. You just leave your email address there, and you can access all sorts of goodies, extras, outtakes, photographs, etc. if you haven't had enough of a dose of running book reviews. That's all for now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.